With us today for your world news. U.S. President Donald Trump says better relations with Russia are essential when it comes to solving world crises like Syria and North Korea. He was speaking a day after the APEC summit in Vietnam.
We have to get to work to solve Syria, to solve North Korea, to solve Ukraine, to solve terrorism. And I feel that having Russia in a friendly posture as opposed to always fighting with them is an asset to the world and an asset to our country, not a liability. Getting along with other nations is a good thing, not a bad thing, believe me.
Donald Trump also stressed the need to overcome disagreement over alleged Russian meddling in the U.S. elections. A formal meeting between the Russian and U.S. presidents had been highly anticipated, though it never actually happened, apparently due to scheduling problems. Nevertheless, the two leaders did briefly catch up on the sidelines of the summit, and that was enough for them to approve a joint statement on the situation in Syria. In fact, they both confirmed their determination to defeat Islamic State. The presidents also agreed that there can be no military solution to Syria. They also said that the final political settlement should be found through the Geneva talks format and stressed that Syria is still a sovereign country. We discussed the latest joint statement approved by Trump and Putin with British MEP Ray Finch. He says America and Russia realize that cooperation is necessary.
What they're talking about is getting closer together and working on diplomatic solutions to problems, not just in the Middle East, but around the world. The fact is, if we have Russia and America baring their teeth at each other, that does nobody any good. If all of the sides involved understand that America and Russia and the rest of the countries from the West are actually on the same side here, eventually there has to be a rapprochement, and they have to understand that they will have to work together. It's not going to be easy because these things never are, particularly in the Middle East, but it will have to happen. And it's a good sign that America and Russia have come to an understanding on this.
Visiting the APEC summit was a part of Trump's first Asia trip as president. And throughout the trip, the North Korean question remained a key topic, with the war of words between both sides heating up once again. Saturday, Kim Jong-un's government stated that, quote, reckless remarks by an old lunatic, meaning Donald Trump, will never scare Pyongyang or stop its nuclear advance. Answering that, Trump questioned in his tweet the need of the North Korean leader calling him old when he, quote, never would have called him short and fat. Well, throughout the trip, he claimed numerous times that all options against North Korea are on the table and that the country should not underestimate the United States. We discussed Trump's rhetoric on North Korea with Dr. Mark Shanahan, professor of international relations at Reading University. He believes Trump's tough talk won't do any good.
Trump's rhetoric, particularly when he's not speaking face-to-face to the leaders of those countries, is all about ramping up the level of fraughtness in relations. He's decided that he has to have an enemy. That enemy is North Korea, and whether Kim Jong-un is offensive or defensive in his missile games that he's playing at the moment, Trump has decided that the way that he's going to score with his base at home is to make Kim look like the worst enemy possible and to talk tough. That talking tough doesn't quite work in the same way when he gets in front of the Asian leaders, though, where he tends to row back on that rhetoric quite a lot and quite quickly.
German police are investigating claims organized criminal groups have infiltrated their ranks and other state services. That's after a police union stated that members of an Arab underworld clan managed to sneak an insider into the Berlin force.
There are clear indications that large Arab clans have an infiltration strategy and try to keep certain family members away from criminal activities so that they can later infiltrate state services.
However, Berlin's police chief has denied the allegations. Now, the scandal came just 2 days after the city's police academy was accused of enrolling violent and criminal trainees. Peter Oliver investigates.
Amid accusations there were violent or even criminal recruits in its academy, things were already looking bad for Berlin's police force. But now it's got a whole lot worse with the arrest of an intern, which has erupted into a deeply embarrassing scandal. A 20-year-old female student is accused of illegally copying photos of people wanted in a police operation and sending them on. It's alleged she was planted in the force by one of the city's notorious Arab mafia clans. We forwarded the allegations to the police, and this was all we received in response.
Berlin police have launched a criminal investigation into a 20-year-old student from the Berlin School of Economics and Law. She's accused of revealing state secrets.
Is it true that the suspect has migrant roots?
Yes.
Those who devote their time to studying the mafia clans of Berlin say attempts to increase diversity in the police has left the door open to infiltration.
The way is to weaken the criteria of integration. That is the case in the police academy. The new government in Berlin has last year made a reform and weakened the criteria. And we have, for the first time, 43% of people with migration background who are accepted. It was a good offer for them to infiltrate the state, and they are doing it.
Last week, an anonymous letter was sent to the Berlin chief of police, purporting to be from a long-serving detective. It claimed that Arabic mafia families were using the Berlin Academy to infiltrate the force, something the city's police union says there currently isn't any proof of.
At the moment, we do not have any cases where there is clear evidence of that. But we do understand that criminal organizations like these clans have an incentive to try and infiltrate government organizations like the police. That's why it's so important during training that we identify who belongs as part of the police force and who does not.
But who are these Arabic mafia clans that it's claimed run Berlin's criminal underworld?
It's impossible to put a percentage figure on how much criminality they account for, but if you look into it, then yes, they are present in all different types of crime revenues: drugs, racketeering, prostitution, all criminal revenue streams.
And it's for those reasons that people directly involved in law enforcement and the citizens of Berlin want to know if their police force has been compromised by criminals. Peter Oliver, RT Berlin.
On Tuesday, Russia marked the 100th anniversary of the revolution that led to the creation of the USSR. And RT's been running a real-time historical news feed on Twitter. You can still follow it, actually, the hashtag 1917live, to find out how events were unfolding minute by minute 100 years ago. And on the feed right now, clashes continue, with revolutionary forces now controlling the main streets around the Kremlin, while in the then capital, St. Petersburg, the anti-Bolshevik press is shut down for fear-mongering with fake news. Now, you may be wondering why we're talking about the October Revolution in November. That's because Soviet Russia adopted a new calendar after the Bolsheviks took power on the 25th of October 1917. That's November the 7th, according to the Gregorian calendar used by most of the world today. Here's a short recap of what happened in Russia back then.
It's October 1917, and Russia is fast approaching one of the most radical turning points in its history. The country had been turned upside down by the February Revolution and exhausted by the First World War.
The whole country floundered in a cauldron of anarchy. Enormous Russia, bearing the new world, writhed in pain.
Tsar Nicholas II, living in exile in Siberia, with his family following his abdication 7 months ago. The Provisional Government, occupying the Russian monarch's main residency, the Winter Palace, moderately liberal, and aiming to create a new constitution. Then their frenemies, the Petrograd Soviet Group, formed of workers and soldiers. The two institutions are supposed to share power, but in reality are competing for it. And that's where the Bolsheviks and Vladimir Lenin come in.
It must be explained to the masses that the Soviet of Workers' Deputies is the only possible form of revolutionary government. Place power in the hands of the proletariat and the poorest strata of the peasantry.
The Bolsheviks' promises essentially boiled down to this: power to the Soviets, peace to nations, land to peasants, and bread to the hungry. It took them just 2 days to come to power. On October 24th and 25th, they swiftly seized post offices, key railway stations, the state bank, the port and other strategic locations across the city. At 9:45 p.m, a blank shot fired from cruiser Aurora, signalling the start of the storming of the Winter Palace. By 2 a.m. on the 26th of October, the revolutionaries occupied it and arrested the provisional government. The new Bolshevik government was formed, with Lenin at the helm.
And for a more detailed look, check out RT's online project reconstructing this critical chapter in Russian history at 1917.rt.com. For the meanwhile, though, your weekly returns in about half an hour.